The next thing that I wanted to talk about is leveraging industrial capabilities. And this is something that's oftentimes overlooked when companies talk about developing vaccines. But if you're going to go global, when you're going to have a large portfolio that you're trying to work in that paradigm, you have to have industrial capabilities. So what I'm showing you right now is the footprint that we have at Sanofi-Pasteur on a global basis. These are our facilities around the globe. So in North America, we have one in Toronto. In the United States, we have 3, one in Swiftwater, Pennsylvania, one in Canton, Massachusetts, one in Rockville. In Argentina, we have one in Pilar. In Mexico, we have a joint facility with Birmex in Ocoyoacac. In France, we have 3 large facilities at Val-de-Reuil, Marcy-l'Étoile, and Neuvy. In Hyderabad, we have the Shanta facility, which we acquired in 2009. We have the Shenzhen flu facility located in Shenzhen, China. And we have the Chachangsao facility, which is a joint facility in Thailand. Now, this is our basic footprint that we work from at the present time, but it's not sufficient to do what we'd like to do. We want to expand our industrial network because we know that in order to get vaccines to people, particularly in the emerging markets, we're going to have to expand that footprint. Vaccine manufacturing is capital intensive. There's no way to walk away from this, and I'll show you a number in a minute that will make that very clear. It's hard to get the technology, it's hard to find the expertise to make sure that it works, and it's hard to continue to meet the ever-changing GMP standards, so it's challenging. The local manufacturers are present in almost all countries you would be interested in targeting for emerging markets, or they have reach into those countries that you want to get to. And one of the things that becomes very clear is that many of them have complementary capabilities with companies like Sanofi-Pasteur. And so the rationale for forming partnerships here becomes very strong. 2 examples of this are the international flu facilities that we have now in Shenzhen, China, and in Ocoyoacac, Mexico, in conjunction with our partner Birmex. So leveraging industrial platforms through partnerships, this now puts our footprint with the footprint of some of our partners, not all of them. And if I can reduce this just a little bit, you'll see that the partners that we have in Mexico include Birmex, Instituto Butantan in Brazil, the Biovac Institute in the Republic of South Africa, Panacea Biotech in India, GPO in Thailand, Biljimifa in Turkey, the Chumakov Institute in Moscow, the Institut Pasteur in Algeria, and we also have others in addition to those that are on the screen. Something that I should mention is that in terms of actual manufacturing, we have in the facilities that I showed you the footprint about 60% of our people operating on what we call industrial operations or manufacturing. Those 60% of the people are providing about 1 billion doses of vaccine per year. And over the past 5 years, Sanofi-Pasteur, through its parent, Sanofi Aventis Group, has invested 2 billion euros in the manufacturing facilities that we have. So it's a significantly important piece of any vaccine business if you're going to commercialize globally. So I'll finish up by just giving you 2 slides that will remind you what we plan to do both in the emerging markets as well as in the developed markets. In the emerging markets, our focus on growth is to essentially develop products for those regions, to target products either specifically for those regions or global products that can be used both in the developing and the emerging markets. We do this through expanding our current portfolio, and one of the primary ways that we do that is through forming partnerships with companies in the vaccine space, whether they're biotech companies, whether they're institutes, whether they're academic groups, or whether they're companies that would normally be viewed as competitors. We're interested in forming the alliances that we need to form in order to move our products ahead. One of the examples of a partnership that turned into an acquisition in 2009 is Shanta. Shanta is absolutely essential to our emerging market strategy. It has the potential to provide high quality and affordable vaccines to satisfy the unmet medical needs in the public market in India, as well as the international IFPM markets. It has a portfolio that includes pediatric combination products, hepatitis B and cholera, and it has an R&D pipeline which includes such products as HPV and rotavirus. So this is what we plan to do in the emerging markets. In the developed markets, the focus is going to be on both innovation, which is a way of saying new product development, as well as life cycle management, which is a statement that says improving vaccines that are currently in market. Well, I've talked to you a little bit about the innovation side from the standpoint of dengue, C. difficile. We also have hexavalent pediatric combinations, and we have a 4-valent Fluzone product, an influenza product. The influenza market has been one of those markets which has continued to grow the business for the developed world. It's been driven a lot by pandemic concerns, but it's also been driven a lot by improved and increased recommendations. For example, in the United States now we have a universal recommendation for most of the age groups for influenza, which is very helpful. We're trying to differentiate some of the products that are in the market at the present time, and two of the things that we've done is to, one, try to improve the antibody response that we get in the elderly influenza by formulating a stronger dose, which we call Fluzone high dose. A second thing that we're doing is to work with different kinds of technology for delivery. Intradermal is a route that we've been working on now for the past 6 or 7 years based on a partnership that we put together with Becton Dickinson back in 2005. If you take a look at the needle that's on the left-hand side, this is a hypodermic needle that you would normally get your influenza vaccine in. If you take a look at the needle on the right, you're going to be taking a look at the intradermal needle. So I know what I'm going to do when my choice comes. So that's where I'll leave you, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. An excellent presentation. Can I call for questions from the audience? Quite a rich field for discussion here. Just to seed it maybe, and I do want to try to call on people, but one of the issues that I've often heard of in terms of major new products with global applications is the high cost of the product and whether the developing world or the emerging markets can afford those. Sometimes the discussion is about the emerging country manufacturers producing those. Well, not always a simple matter with high technology products, with sometimes proprietary technologies. Do you have thoughts about that and sort of allied with that? You described, I think it was 8, if I remember right, different manufacturing facilities that Sanofi-Pasteur currently has, not counting some of your corporate alliances. In any of those cases, do you currently manufacture the same product in multiple sites?
Yes.
And is that a viable approach to addressing global markets?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a huge question that really asks a lot of questions wrapped within it. One of the questions is, will some of these markets that you're currently supplying that are subsidized markets where public-private partnerships are playing a large role, will they ever be capable of purchasing vaccines? The answer to that's unknown. It's untested. I think some of the mechanisms that have been put in place with public-private partnerships are very innovative, and I'm very encouraged by the results that they have. When I start to see the governments of those countries shifting their allocations away from food and education and housing and moving them into healthcare and specifically into vaccines, I'll feel more confident about the self-sustainability of it. I don't see it yet, but I do see that there's a driving impetus, and I do see that there's an increasing awareness of the need for these kinds of things. Now, can you supply the vaccine needs for any global product from the existing facilities that you have? Frankly, no. I think partnerships are going to continue to be important. They're important because you need the capacity. They're also important because you need the attachment of the people and the governments. Many of these facilities are government-established facilities that were put up in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and they're not new. But they are facilities which have excellent capabilities, and they have excellent people that are working in them. Well, they have the ability to manufacture certain aspects of the product that you don't want to duplicate. You have the higher end, generally the bulk stage manufacturing technology which you can transfer or which you can make use of in a bulk scale. Well, I think actually the argument for these partnerships that you're forming with the emerging markets plus the multinational companies or any biotech company that wants to commercialize their product globally is actually very strong. I'm quite encouraged by the results that I've seen globally so far.
Have we stimulated any additional questions from the participants yet? Allan, you're paying close attention on it. I guess one thought that I've had, and it's sort of related to my latest non-professional passion, bicycling. So I read a lot in the bicycling magazines and all that about what they call drop-down technology or flow-through. So the suppliers come out with new technologies, new materials, new innovations. And as a new generation of product comes out, the earlier generation technologies flow down into less expensive products. I wonder whether there's an opportunity for some of that and how we would all feel about it. You know, we go through multiple generations here, whether technologies for some of the earlier generations can be expanded to meet infectious disease needs elsewhere.
I think it could. I think the answer to that is that could be a mechanism. I think one of the most important things for the emerging markets is to get the first generation product into the market. Mm-hmm. And I think that for that kind of thing, it's probably not possible to employ the model. Well, one of the things that, and Lance, you know this well because you've been in the vaccine business for a long time, one of the things that a lot of organizations have been criticized for is the trickle-down effect in terms of how vaccines actually get to the emerging market. Why is a person in a developed world market getting it today and the person in the emerging world market is going to get it 10 years from now? There is no good answer to that. It's based on history. It's based on the fact that a lot of technology has been developed in the developing world, but it's certainly not a statement of the priority of people's medical needs, developed versus emerging. So the first problem that we're trying to wrestle with is how do we get the vaccine product equally distributed in both the developed and the emerging markets? Once we get there, then I think testing your question could be something that would be interesting. Yeah.
I think it also relates to the question I asked Dr. Okwa. As we've fragmented the market and we're selling single-dose presentations in the U.S. and Europe, the affluent markets, and those have cold chain requirements and costs associated with them that can't be borne by some of the larger global markets. Getting those innovative products uniformly out to the world is tough because they want different things and they can accommodate different products.
Lance, I have a question.
Yes, please.
George Adams from EMD Millipore. Alan, what accounts for the more conservative growth numbers that we're hearing now? A year ago or 2 years ago, it was 15 to 20%. Now it's 8 to 10% in the market. Why are the numbers becoming more conservative?
George, can you try that again?
Sure. Just the growth numbers in the market as a whole. You mentioned 10% market growth. A year ago, we might have seen numbers 15 to 20%. Why are the numbers more conservative now in terms of the vaccine industry's growth?
Well, I've taken, so the question is why are the estimates on economic growth in the vaccine field different? I'm not, for my part, sure whether the numbers have changed, whether it's different people who are estimating the growth rates of the industry.
Well, I think in some cases you have people that are looking at growth in the 2000 to 2010 timeframe, and that was a period when you were seeing a lot of introduction of new vaccines. You were seeing Prevnar coming along, you were seeing Gardasil coming along, you were seeing Rotarix coming along, and all of these things are vaccines which carry big price tags. So for the same number of doses, your revenues are going to be higher, and frankly your profitability is going to be higher, even though they're complex to manufacture. We are in a period right now, starting in sort of the 2010, 2011 timeframe, where you're not seeing the same kind of burst of new vaccines that you were seeing from, for instance, 2005 to 2010. If you were, then I think those numbers would be commensurate. But one of the problems with an industry which is small, and I mean, let's face it, vaccines is roughly a $25 million industry floating in a billion industry floating in a $450 billion pharmaceutical industry. So it's a small piece, it's not 10%. And in a situation like that, you have a limited number of products. And when you have a limited number of products, you're subject to sawtooth growth no matter what you do to try to create a level ramp. It's very, very hard to do. So you're going to have periods when a lot of products are coming through, and this is what you saw from 2005 to 2010, and that's what gave you the boost.